Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Serena Diamond, CEO and founder of Diamond Solutions Group, a leadership consultant and transformation executive with over 30 years of experience helping organizations navigate change. Throughout her career, she has worked with global companies like Accenture, IBM, and PepsiCo, partnering with leaders to turn ambitious ideas into successful outcomes. After decades in the corporate world, Serena took a leap of faith into entrepreneurship, where she's now helping businesses and the people behind them embrace change, unlock potentials, and redefine success on their own terms. Serena, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. So, Sarina, I want you to take us back to your 20s, basically. So, I'd like to ask, what was life like in your 20s? And, what dreams or ambitions were driving you then?
Oh, wow. It's been a minute. But I will say, I thought about this in preparation for coming and chatting with you today, and I think I in my 20s I wasn't that different than my children, which are also in their 20s, in that I didn't have it all figured out, and but I thought, okay, well, I can sort of follow the path. I thought success was, title, uh, salary, and that standard trajectory that so many people seem to think that they're supposed to have done. I had graduated from college and landed a big girl job, so to speak. And what was so surprising to me is that I did not know at the time the things that were really going to matter, which had nothing to do with what I had learned in college or what I had been, being told since birth by my entrepreneurial parents about work hard and get it all right. I wish that I had, in some cases, trusted some of the things that didn't sound right to me, for me, that didn't sound right for me, at the time. But I think I was, just I was working. Later, I was starting a family late in my 20s, and just doing the things that I believe was this is what you're supposed to do. I wasn't defining anything about and never really asking myself, was this what was making me happy? Or was this what was helping me to feel like I was fulfilling what I was supposed to do with my one precious life?
Wow. Oh, all right. Thank you for sharing your story with us, right? And I think my lesson from that would be, always trying to make conscious decisions, right, to, better improve yourself and to make decisions that are actually what you want, right? Not, to seek external validation or not what you think people want for you. It should be what you want for yourself. Because at the end of the day, your happiness is what matters. Right. Okay. So now I want us to touch on leadership, change, and entrepreneurship, right? So after more than 3 decades in the corporate world, what inspired you to start Diamond Solutions Groups?
Um, thanks for that question. It's probably the one that I answer the most because people say to me, I had been at IBM for the second half of my career, and I retired early, but retired from IBM, wanting to focus very specifically on organizational change. I spent about 6 months in another company just building an organizational change organization team. And not unlike many people of all generations, I found myself on the tail end of a 35-second Zoom call that said we were going to be going in different directions. And I was lost after all of my career. And I, I don't think anybody comes off of one of those kind of calls feeling confident. And it took me a minute. It took me several minutes, I will say, to reach a place where I decided that I was going to bet on the one boss that I knew I could always trust and form my own
Mm,
company and call my own shots. And I have been, I'm not even being, it's not bragging or anything. I'm being just very direct. I have been more successful by all of the success, definitions than I ever thought that I could have been. And I have been happier every single day doing it than I've ever would have imagined um, at any point in time. So it was not, it was that definitely the lemonade out of lemons perspective, but it was the best thing that ever happened. Now looking back at it.
wow. I like that you said, lemonade out of lemons. Actually, that itself is a lesson on its own, right? So the thing is, you've worked with organizations ranging from Fortune 100 companies to, growing businesses, right? So what have you learned about what people often resist? Or should I say, what have you learned about why people often resist change?
Oh, it is a great question. And I will tell you that at the crux of all resistance, or maybe not all, because 99.99% of all of the change that I have ever seen resisted, it is
Hmm.
always fear. It is the fear of the unknown. It is the fear of being obsolete in the new world. It is the fear of not knowing the path that's going to get there. Sometimes it's the fear of not seeing or the fear of letting go of what I'm confident about knowing. And when leaders recognize that is what is driving their teams to be resistant, teams to be
Hmm.
difficult, or teams holding on to the old ways of doing things. It changes the way leaders have the opportunity to show up and help their organization through the chasm of change. Because you treat fear, you're unless you're really a jerk, you treat fear differently than you treat true resistance, people that are just being, ornery. And there's a different way to lead people and manage the emotions through it when you recognize that it's fear based, that it is not people just being just difficult.
Hmm. Wow. All right. So another thing is you talk about transforming what if into way to go, right? So what does that mindset mean, first of all? And how can people start applying it in their own lives, businesses and personal life as well?
For sure. So
Mm.
it is actually the underpinning of all of the work that I do because leaders as a whole have vision, right? It's just usually it's the hallmark of a good leader is that they envision a future. They envision a different way of being. They envision growth or something that demonstrates change. And I use those visions when I talk to leaders. Those are their what if moments. What if we could? What if we could grow something? What if I could do something different? What if we as an organization could? So those what if statements are the basis for the change. And I help leaders to understand how they turn that what if statement or vision that they have into that way to go celebration with their teams at the successful conclusion of the path, the journey that they're on to achieve that what if vision. And that's where so many times when we look at how do you do that transition? How do you make something that you want to believe in become successful? It is the thing that most leaders struggle with, and it's the reason, frankly, that I love what I do every single day because that journey is it's a path and it is a very specific model that I follow when I help leaders bring their teams and their organizations along through that journey.
Mm. Wow. So, instead of asking what if, right, you start asking yourself, how do I get to this place, right? How do I get to where I dream of? What are the steps involved? What are the things I need to do instead of asking, the question, what if, basically? So, wow, okay. So, throughout your corporate journey, or right, throughout your journey, you've experienced both corporate and personal challenges. So, how did those experiences shape the leader and entrepreneur you've become?
Well, I think with all of us, the personal or corporate um, challenges, trauma for some, challenges for others, and some people's challenges are traumatic to others. I think that coming away from those challenges in a way that you have an opportunity to learn something. It's not to say that you're, I mean, not to for a second that those learning opportunities aren't painful for some. Traumatic experiences may be very, very painful. The question really for all, and what I tell, young people is, what did you learn from it? Some of those learnings may take a minute until you can actually see it. But if you can take any of the traumatic, and I look at both the personal traumas that I've endured as well as the corporate traumas that I've endured and say, what did I learn about myself? Sometimes it's what did I learn as a result of seeing a leader that I did not want to emulate any way, shape, or form. So what do I learn from that that I will never do, as opposed to something that I do want to emulate? And the thing really is, how do I leave this, in some cases, very toxic situation? I've had some pretty tough jobs, things that were my responsibility that I thought I would, the expectation was that I would do them to the best of my ability, but morally I struggled very, very much with the things that were part of my responsibility. Things like layoffs, right? The ability to handle that in a way that is human, that is not just that people aren't just a number. Those kinds of experiences define you as a human. And so I think that part of that response when for any young person, if they're looking at something that is really difficult, I'm not talking about having to work a weekend. I'm talking about, in my case, being responsible for not just delivering the message, but trying to figure out what how the business was going to respond after an exodus of a number of people. How do you, as a human being, be okay with some of those kinds of traumatic events? And what can you learn from it? And how do you look yourself in the mirror the next day? I've worked for people that had, an ability to not look themselves in the mirror, just move on. This was just business. I will say that looking back on my whole career, it was never just business. It was always people for me. And I am very proud of the fact that it was always people first. People mattered, the human beings that I worked with and for, as well as those who worked with and for me, were always the most important aspect of any of the challenges that we were faced with. And I think that's an important thing for young people to remember is the climb doesn't matter if you've stepped on people along the way.
Hmm. Wow. Oh, all right. Thank you, Sarina. Wow, this has been amazing, honestly. And I like to say that I've actually learned a whole lot from what you just said. Right. And one thing I need us to touch on, you often speak about the power of and, right? So could you explain what that philosophy means and why it's so important in your life?
So I think that it's very easy to get very focused on a linear direction. This is what I'm doing, or kind of thing. I'm going to either go left or go right. Now, I'm either going to take this job or that job. When I first started my consultancy, I struggled with what I was going to do. And I was challenging myself because I still had followed that sort of linear thinking. I could do this or that. And it was a mentor of mine who asked me the question. She laughs when I remind her of it now. Um, but she just came back to me and said, "Where's the and? Like, why do you keep saying or? Where's the and?" And I really thought about that and decided that you can have more than one fishing rod in the water at the time, right? You can have the and is important. And it has created a very inclusive, very open perspective on work that I have been looking at. But more even from that is that I have been very specific on how do leaders show up in ways that don't require them to choose between or. For example, how do leaders become both strategic while being kind? How do leaders show up well and hold their teams accountable while still being empathetic? So I don't believe that it has to be an or conversation. And I continue to challenge leaders throughout all of my work that you can achieve your objectives that you have and still show up demonstrating the core values of your company. It's crucially important that everyone, leaders as well as people in the teams, find that balance and make sure that they are not selling one out for the other.
Oh, all right. So yes, thank you for that. And I want us to like take life lessons from this, right? Because many young adults, or should I say young professionals, right, they feel pressured to follow a traditional definition of success, right? So how can someone recognize when it's time to define success for themselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the moment to define success for yourself is the moment at which you're making your own first decisions. I think it
Mm,
starts way before your professional environment. What does success mean for you? Shouldn't be something that's defined by your parents or by your college professors or even by the society that we live in, because ultimately at the end of the day, your happiness depends on yourself, and that's where success really comes from. If I could, go back and tell my younger self the things that matter the most are making the decisions that are going to sit right with you in the quiet moments of your life. Those things that are going to feel like you've done the right thing, even though nobody was watching you. And that doesn't mean that you don't have responsibilities. Right? I'm not suggesting that, well, it will make me happy to sit and
mm,
play games all day, but I do believe that that's not helping young people to say, I'm going to meet someone else's expectations. I have I have a strong belief that people want to belong and they want to feel valued from that belonging. So I do think that if if people are really sort of chasing their own definition of what does it feel like I'm making a difference here? How do I have impact in my world and in the world around me? I think that what I've
mm,
seen more and more is those young people that are looking at trying to chase that definition. It's making them happier earlier. And especially as the world has just gotten harder and harder, if you feel like you are doing something that matters, it makes a really big difference.
mm,
Ultimately, we all have one precious life. And if you're spending your time doing that authentically, you will find a level of happiness, and I truly believe a level of success that far exceeds anything that you could read in an MBA journal.
mm. Wow. All right. So yes, thank you, Sarina. Right. And wow. All right. Finally, I just I want you to, talk to someone out there, specifically, younger adults, right? What advice would you have for them generally, about life and also business wise, right? What advice would you give to them that you feel will be very valuable to them later in life?
I'm so glad you asked this too, because this is actually the advice that I try really hard to impart on my own young people, my own children. Is there was somewhere along this in the journey of growing up that you believe, or that people make you believe, that you're supposed to just do it yourself. You're supposed to do your own test in school. You're not supposed to cheat off your friends, right? You're supposed to do your own accomplishments. But then all of a sudden you get to the looking for a job or collaborating on a work project, and there is somehow this belief that you're supposed to do it yourself that's carried on. And I look back and I think all of the places where I was truly successful, I relied on a larger network of people. I tapped into more people to be able to contribute what I knew, but also to learn from each other. And I think about all the young people that are going through job searches now, and see them struggling with, I applied to 27 jobs today and I haven't heard from any. And I think, and how many of those job searches did you look to see if anyone in your network knows someone? Because it's so important to leverage the who you know so that you can shine on what you know. But nobody is going to know how brilliant young people are if they can't find them. And the best way to be found is through another human being. That whole Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation thing is real. And so I say to young people all the time, I am not saying nepotism. I'm not trying to say go find somebody in your dad's company, but I am saying go find somebody that knows you, that can vouch for you. One, it makes them look good. They happen to know a young person, and it's awesome that they could connect them to a hiring opportunity. But if you are so determined to go on your own, you won't go very far, and it will be very frustrating. It is so much better if you go with others.
Mm, wow. All right, like you said, go with others. Okay. All right. So thank you, Sarina. This has been amazing, honestly. And it brings me to the final segment of my podcast. It's called the rapid fire segment. You could either answer with a word or a phrase, starting now. What is one word that describes your 20s?
Compliant,
Hmm. Wow. All right. So what is one word that describes you now?
audacious,
Hmm. Wow. Okay. So what is a book that's influenced your leadership journey?
move fast and fix things by
Hmm.
Francis Fry.
Okay. All right. And what is one habit that's helped you succeed?
Asking with curiosity always.
Hmm. Asking with curiosity always. And finally, what is one piece of advice every young professional should hear?
Leverage your network. Find people to go with.
Hmm. Okay, leverage your network and find people to go with. Okay, so yes, thank you, Sarina. And finally, before you go, where can listeners get to learn more about you and connect with you basically?
The best way to connect with me, I mean, I certainly have a website, but the best way to connect with me truly is on LinkedIn, because if you spell my name correctly, the way my mom intended, not the way Serena Williams' mom intended for her, but if you spell it Sarena and then Diamond like the stone, I am the only Serena Diamond on LinkedIn. And I post there regularly, and I interact with my direct messages every single day. So I'm happy to answer any of your audience's questions, or if there's any guidance, or if there's someone in my network that works in a company that someone's applying for, let's talk and let me see what I can do to help you.
Hmm, wow. All right. So yes, thank you, Serena. And I'm gonna put the link in the show notes so it's easily accessible for listeners. And to my listeners, I want to say thanks for tuning into Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Once again, thank you, Serena. Do you have a wonderful day ahead of you?
Thank you so much.
All right.